I'm so glad you're all back for another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today, we have a very special author on, Xander Cross. I discovered him doing virtual festivals a couple of years ago during COVID, and what an absolute delight. Xander, I'm so glad that you're back. I love your stories. They are so inventive and so fantastical. I think you're an amazing storyteller. So I'm so glad that you came to the podcast to share your work with us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back and hanging out with you. It's so great.
It's like, really, really fun. Zoom has given us the ability to make friends in places we normally wouldn't have. I mean, you're several states away from me, and it's very cool that we get to find new people for our circles. I think it's a very cool thing. For those of you who don't know, Xander Cross holds a bachelor's degree in history, which he uses to write his paranormal fiction. A lifelong enthusiast of Japanese culture and folklore, Xander cosplays as Kitsune. Did I pronounce that right?
Kitsune.
I'm never sure how I get it right. And yokai on occasion. And photographic evidence can be found on his Instagram and Pinterest pages. And if you look at the cover page for this episode, you'll see him in full costume, which is so cool. It's so cool that you do this. I especially love when you're in full costume and you have your tail, because that tail is something really neat. I think it's very cool. So those of you who haven't seen it yet, go to Xander's website. It's in the show notes, and you can see the full costume. Very cool stuff. Xander's book, I'm going to get this wrong. This is the third book in the Atlas Dystopia Apocalyptic.
Well, it's like Apocalyptica.
And the title is?
The Onmyoji Gambit.
Okay. See, the Gambit part I got right. This is dark fantasy, cyberpunk science fiction, and Asian myth and legend. Can you just give us a little background on this story before you begin to read?
Yeah, so the story is basically, imagine yokai yakuza running around in the 22nd century doing bad things, but instead of with like regular guns or with just swords, they're running around with laser guns, and they're doing things in a future world because figure of supernatural creatures exists, like even now, like say they did, then if they would still presumably exist in a future that is increasingly kind of growing dark and dystopic, and that kind of idea took root. And here we are. And so the first book is about this Kitsune, who was a divine messenger of Inari, who's a kami in Japanese folklore and mythology. Actually, well, not Flemish folklore. I mean, it's a part of the Shinto religion. So let me put it that way. But it's also a lot of folkloric background through the Mount Inari and all this other stuff. So Hayate was a divine messenger, which is at least one of these white foxes of this kami of agriculture and blacksmithing and grain, and foxes are associated with this kami.
Okay.
So he comes to Earth and he falls. He actually ends up turning into a demon. And from there, he runs around he gets involved with this dragon who sort of gets him to be a part of this war for the megapolis of New Tokyo, because Tokyo is no longer Tokyo. It got completely decimated by an earthquake. So they rebuilt it. So we could call it New Tokyo, which keeps me out of some trouble. And so I don't have to know where everything is in Tokyo because, well, it got rebuilt. So, and they rebuilt it in a more dystopian sort of way. So there's like
so much fun to do dystopian fiction because you get to talk about familiar things, but still make it up as you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do. Really fun.
Although the world keeps getting ahead of me, like, there's in my books in the 2050s, there's a pandemic, but they happen in 2020. I mean, it's just like, it just seems like, the apocalypse is happening faster than it's supposed to.
It's like you almost want to publish the timeline on your website so that the government can, do it the proper way.
It's like, hey, we're not supposed to have 100-degree water in Florida yet. That's supposed to be in about another 30 to 40 years. What the heck?
So give us a little lead into this particular piece that you're going to read today.
Okay, so I'll hold up the book.
There's the book. Yay!
So in this case, and this is the Miami Vice cover because I wanted it to look like Miami Vice. That's like Yeah, Crockett and Tubbs.
I think you succeeded. Good job.
Yeah, so in this case, Hayate's been doing this sort of, thing with where he's kind of a yokai yakuza. And in this book, he learns that he's going to be his master, who's already taken over New Tokyo. He's going to be his international arms dealer. And Hayate doesn't really want to do this, but he is being forced into this, and so he has to do it. So this sort of takes, and in the meantime, he's also starting to question whether or not, so just because he fell, does that mean he's really an actual demon? Because in the last book before this one, he got the idea that maybe he was sent. Maybe he, he fell and became a demon because his god wanted him to, so that he could be the god's agent, but in the shadows and in the darkness, like a double agent kind of thing.
Sure.
So he's starting to believe it. And it's scary for him to believe, because what if that's not true? So that's where we're at. And after just learning that he is going to be an international arms dealer, he stops on the way to the local little Nihonsho stand. That's pretty close to where he lives. And that's where we're going to get started.
Okay, awesome. I'm so excited to hear this. I love your storytelling. And anytime I get you to read out loud to my 6-year-old child, I'm very happy. So please, when you're ready, take the microphone and read aloud.
Okay, let's do that. And here we go. The man who owned the little side street bar had met me only once, the day before the council. There was no opportunity to return since, and frankly, I was far from certain what sort of reception I would receive. The bar owner was sanctioned and had seen my yokai reflection in his mirrored back wall the first and last time I visited. Kitsune were not usually welcome guests, given the nature and reputation of my species. I stepped between the cloth banners that shielded the interior from view, stirring in a humid breeze. The owner was sitting behind his bar, watching a hollow vid on his tab. He blinked when I entered, then stood, stiff and wide-eyed. I held my hands up in front of me. I come as a paying customer, unless you would rather I take my business elsewhere? He took a breath and relaxed somewhat. No, come in, please. Thank you, I said, and took a square stool dead front and center. I need the strongest Nihonshu you have. He set to work. That kind of day? Hi, I muttered. Although Youta had not mentioned conquest, I knew him. He would bring his world vision to fruition and destroy any obstacle in his path like he did Hirashi. Lucky me, I was one of the primary weapons in his arsenal. I felt an invisible target on my back and the weight of my lord's expectations upon my shoulders. This was what it meant to be yokai yakuza of rank. The man behind the bar grimaced. I remember those days, not fun. I grunted with a nod. I drank a few rounds, not enough to get intoxicated, but the edge was certainly dulled by the time I left. It had become a lovely summer evening once the drizzle moved off. The coming night would be clear and cool. That was the kind of night that made me want to run for the sake of being alive. I wished I had a hover bike to run through the inmet, and decided I would get one soon. Wealth brought privileges. I needed a way to feel free to tear through the fields, in a manner of speaking. In lieu of that freedom, I chose to walk and enjoy my buzz, deciding not to go home. There was nothing and no one to do there anyway. Chikako was already at the Audi. I went in the opposite direction of my building and explored the neighborhood instead. A block down and one street over, I saw a torii gate that denoted a small urban shrine. These were not uncommon, and as in times before, people still paid homage to them, particularly the sanctioned. This one was crammed between two buildings taller than it. Before the shrine proper was a stone garden filled with fox statues, the largest two of which flanked the entrance. The grim faces stared at me in stony warning to stay away. There were spirits in the guardian statues and spells woven in them to repel creatures like me, especially fallen shrine foxes. We had a thing for haunting abandoned shrines and our broken desire to return to what was lost. What I would not have given to walk among those statues, and how I longed to go inside the gate. I wanted it so bad as I stared beyond the threshold that no yokai dared pass. I gazed in with haunted eyes, a lost kid far from home, and staring into the window of what I was forever barred from. Or was I? What if I was sent, as Haruto suggested? The other dragons thought so, and the Onmyoji Minamoto too. We're on the same side. Silver sword in the darkness, you are not like the others. A part of me, the one that longed to go home, who needed a reason for all the terrible things that had happened since I awoke in this world, wanted it to be true. If I were sent, as Lord Haruto called me, my life had a purpose, and my suffering was not arbitrary. Perhaps that was why I stopped and prayed. I clapped my hands twice together and bowed my head. Inari-sama, if I am sent, please help me to know what to do. I am afraid. Good evening, I heard a man shout. I opened my eyes and saw a priest standing outside the door. I'm sorry to disturb your prayer, but please come inside. If only I could oblige. I touched the air in front of the gate and felt the electric sting crackle upon my fingertips, the barrier that kept evil things from passing through. I grimaced and cursed myself in silence for having come here. Sent indeed, Baka Kitsune. I cannot, I said, and turned away. Wait, I heard him scuffle across the stone path after me. Stop. Reluctantly, I looked over my shoulder. The priest of middling height stared at me just inside the gate. I saw the moment he realized what I was, for his mouth fell open and his eyes bulged. You can't help me, I said, and turned away, melting into the crowd. I walked briskly to put distance between myself and this wretched place. That put a damper on my evening. In my fretful state, I decided to find a suitable victim to take it out on, but it was a slow night for bad guys. After an hour of hunting through the Japanese sector, I finally stumbled across a woman forced into a dark alley. She had been about to experience a very unpleasant night when I pulled the man off of her into the shadows. Shiroi window, I heard her say. I shivered as the syllables washed through my demonic form, skin itching to answer the summons, but I did not return. I ate my prey's heart instead and fed his corpse to the lesser yokai which inhabited this plane. Perhaps what I had done was good or not, I do not know. It was simply the best I could do. I expected that incident with the shrine to be the end of the matter. My schedule was filled. It was easy to avoid the street shrine, and I willfully put the incident out of my mind, carrying on business as usual. Until, that is, a few days later, when I got off the Transrail stop early with a mind to stop at that little bar on my way home. I was lost in thoughts of which Nihonshu I would try when I turned the corner and came face to face with the priest. I made to walk around him, but he got in my way. We danced back and forth in this way for a few seconds. Disgruntled, I curled my lip, glowered, and turned to walk back the way I had come. I know what you are, and who, he called after me. I stopped in my tracks, hair and fur bristling. Come to the park with me, Shirogitsune. I gazed at the green sprawl of land across the street. I sighed. Will you leave me be if I do? I asked. That is up to you after. I do not ask much of your time. With reservations hanging heavy in my heart, we crossed the street when the light signaled for foot traffic to go. The park was nice, filled with green trees and paths, a pretense of the world that had been. There were benches, too, overlooking a verdant lawn, and we sat on one, keeping a polite distance between us. I've never seen one of your kind before, the priest began. Few have. I had begun to doubt until I saw you. Then keep doubting, I said rudely. Our kami cares nothing for you, me, or any of us. That's not true. Sure it is, I scoffed. Otherwise, I would not be here. Maybe that is why you are here, the priest said, mirroring the thing I most wanted to believe. I shook my head. That's nonsense, I protested. The gods have no power here any longer. This world is falling into ruin, which is why it needs one like you more than ever. I am a villain, not a hero. Are you sure about that? He asked. Yes, I have no faith in anything else. You do, or you would not have come that evening to pray. I was having a moment, I scolded. Do not misrepresent what you saw. I saw a hurt fox, lost and alone, needing a home again. He thinks he found one, but he's wrong and he knows it. He's not truly yokai kind, just no longer celestial. Let me help you, Shirogitsune. His voice was warm and kind. How? I asked bitterly. I thought of Yoda's long-term plans, the war I fought in, the battles yet to come. I thought about Aiko and Kazuki, all those I had slain or seen die since. I was a demon in a dragon's menagerie with no escape unless I chose to brave the wilderness, and good luck with that. I did not think running away would save me. If famine did not kill me, the dragons would search me out, some with intent to capture, others to eradicate. There was nowhere in all of Asia I could hide or flee, and nowhere else I wanted to be. I am beyond all help, I said. I know you believe that, but it's not true. He dipped into his pocket and pulled out a holographic business card. You can scan the code on your phone and it will transfer my number to your contact list automatically. You know where the shrine is. I can't enter, I protested. I know. But there's more than one safe house, even for demon kind. He stood up and left me there, holding his stupid card. New Tokyo did not have much in the way of waste disposal on the streets, but I had half a mind to chuck the damn thing in the gutter. Instead, I slid it into my pocket and did my best to forget about it. The priest and his imbecilic offer were the least of my concerns. And anyway, how could a mere human protect me from my own master, a dragon, should I ever desert my post?
Excellent. Well done. Well, now I'm hooked. Now I have to read book 3. I've read the other 2 and they were extraordinary.
Thank you.
The question I have, maybe there are some people who haven't read this style of fiction. What is the connection of Japanese demonhood with a fox?
So foxes in Japanese folklore fall into 2 categories. They can be demons or they can be angelic. If they're angelic, they serve the Inari Kami, the Kami, Inari Kami. And if they are just regular wild field foxes, then they can do whatever they want. But after, so like supposedly, if they can live for 50 years, then they kind of become shapeshifters. And if they live for about 100 years, they grow a second tail up until they hit 9 tails total. And that's as far as the tails go. Now, for wild field foxes, now it depends. Like in China and in Korea, which in Korea they're called gumyo, and I just don't think I'm pronouncing that right, so forgive me. And in China, they're huichin. I also don't have the tones right because I can't remember what the tones are. But in their case, any wild fox can grow 9 tails. But in Japanese folklore, only the ones that are divine messengers can grow the extra tails. Okay. So Hayate had 3 tails before he fell. 2 of them got burned off when he fell. So now he's kind of, basically once he fell, he became a wild fox or a field fox, regular demonic fox. And they can be mischievous. They can be good. They basically can do whatever they want. You don't know. And that is what makes them scary for a lot of people, because when you meet one, they're going to probably trick you. Now, and that trick could be, that can give you spiritual enlightenment or some kind of wisdom. It's usually that kind of a gift they will give you. But they will give it to you the hard way. You will learn a hard lesson to get it. And they do it on their terms. And that makes them, they can be malicious. They can be friendly. They can be anything they want. They seduce. And they sometimes take what they want. So I know that,
That's a lot. That's a lot for, I can see why an average human, when they come upon a fox, given that kind of folklore behind them, might see them as wary creatures.
It gets
Be careful. Yeah.
Because so there's something called a fox witch, a kitsune-mochi. And a fox witch is a person who can take control of a fox and make them work the fox to their bidding. And okay, so and there is one lurking around this series. He's been lurking around since book 1, and nobody knows about it. You've seen 2 instances of him, and in both books you don't even know it. But he will eventually get to monologue how awesome.
Yeah, now I have to go back and read books 1 and 2 again.
Book 5, paragraph at the end of paragraph 1. Somewhere in there, you're going to see a reference to a card that's in the village that's broken down. That's him. He's there. He's been there since the beginning. And he wants to
go back and look.
This isn't just any fox. This is one of Inari's foxes he watched fall. So if you can get something like this, that's big time. It's like, why get a cheap steak when you can, from the supermarket, when you can get filet mignon from like a 5-star Michelin restaurant.
Right.
And that's what he wants.
So book 5 isn't even here yet. You're already there. So book 20 is where you plan the series is going to eventually end, right?
Yes. That's what happens.
It's such an ambitious series. I'm really excited, and I'm so happy that you came on the program, and I hope you'll come back and read from the other 2 books so that we can catch people up on the story.
Oh, we will. We'll do that, because I would love to read from Dragon Game. It's my favorite ones yet. I mean, seriously, the second book's my favorite.
Awesome.
It's a special part in my heart for it, just because it came together so well at the very end. That big climax when he just does that, you know, when he says those words, and I'm just like, I just get that feeling of, yeah, nailed it. Yeah.
It's really nice for us authors when our characters do things we enjoy watching. That's super fun. I'm so glad you came on the program today. I look forward to you coming back, and we'll keep watching for the next book.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.